Trey swirling around. Finds Booker straight down the barrel. Bypasses the three. Puts on the floor. Hands it back to Trey. Bounce to Trevor. Here comes. Oh, look at that, Captain Crunch. A two-hand hammer.
And the next piece of production I don't have available to me. So, bum, 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 bum. Good morning. It is tip-off. I'm David Locke. Welcome to today's edition. I hope you are doing well. Thanks so much for tuning in. I am in New Orleans. I apologize for not making the show yesterday, but I got to be smart about things. And didn't think that my voice had enough to get into it. I think I'm probably a little bit better today and should be all right. So thanks very much for tuning in. The questions and answers should be open for you, as they are all the time. And I see we've got a bunch of questions, so we'll get to those. Thanks so much for tuning in. We do this each and every day, unless I don't do it like yesterday. So I guess that's a lie. Right out of the chute, I lied to you. What does that make me? Makes me a liar. Sorry. I'm going to try not to sniffle. I'm going to try. I feel like crap. This is interesting to try this because I got a little Afrin. I got a nasal congestion. I got some chest stuff. I got more drugs inside of me right now. It just makes you feel crappy. My eyes are heavy. All right. It's not, I don't need a pity party. I just am sharing. So let's get into it. Let's just get right to and I don't have, for some reason, I don't know if we haven't used this computer with all my computer problems this year on the road or what, but I don't have any, seemingly have any production available to me. So let us do the NBA 5. What a story out of Sacramento that Mike Malone got fired. I really believe, and I've talked about this a lot, that the new owners that are here in the NBA are going to have a hard time. That that this new group of ownership who believes has made all this money in tech. They're young. They've never failed. They believe everything they can do can fix everything. And the key thing is that in the tech world or whatever economic world, all the banks go up together. All the tech companies can go up together. Everybody can win. And in the NBA world, it doesn't work that way. You only have one or two people that get to win at a given time. Really, one wins a championship, and so, this whole idea, well, we're 13-10, that's not all right, or we're 10-13. That's not the world anymore. It's not the tech world where Microsoft and Google and this .com and this wireless company and this can all rise up at the same time. In our world, it's just the exact opposite. Someone's got to win, someone's got to lose every single night, and you can improve and you can get better and you can still lose just as many games because you're not better than the opponent, which is very much where the Jazz are this year. And I don't think this new ownership group can understand it. The other thing is the Cuban influence. I think they all want to be Mark Cuban, and maybe they should all try to be Peter Holt and do it in the way that Sacramento does. And you don't even know who Peter Holt is. He's the owner of San Antonio, rather than be Mark Cuban. And it's interesting to see how will Tyrone do in Sacramento. It's a bad script. I don't think he'll get a real shot at it. But there's some reasons why he actually might be good. His strength is keeping guys engaged for 82 games. His strength is relationships, and his weakness is probably detailed X's and O's. On a team with DeMarcus Cousins and Rudy Gay, detailed X's and O's is probably not what he needs to do. And I sometimes think detailed X's and O's is a little overrated. Getting the guys to come out and play hard every night and be ready to go and be engaged and manage their season as their veterans is probably, maybe that's the difference between being a good and a great team. I don't know, but it's there's some, and his relationship with DeMarcus probably will be pretty good. So there might be some reasons why this isn't such a bad match for Tyrone. Vivek seems to want to play this crazy up-tempo style, which why anyone would want to do that when they have DeMarcus Cousins is a little bit beyond me. And I don't really understand that concept because actually I think that some of the stuff that Tyrone does with the cross screening for the bigs and the old Jerry offense might work pretty darn well for DeMarcus Cousins, and let him play like Karl Malone did. And he's got the ability to pass already that Malone developed later in his career. So again, organizationally they all have to be on the same page and they want to play 5-on-4. So and have one guy leak out. Phoenix has suddenly lost 6 in a row. They got beat last night on a terrible buzzer beater. A huge part of this league is simply belief. Believing you're good. We don't believe we're very good. Orlando doesn't believe they're very good. I believe Orlando's very good, but then I watch them, and for 3 quarters they are very good, and that's why I believe they're very good. And then They don't believe they're very good. They did it to me again last night. They ended up losing by 13 to Toronto, but it's a very similar game to the game that the Jazz played in Toronto. Orlando leads by 3 after 1, and they fall behind at the half. Then they came back and waxed them in the third. They led by 6 at the half, and then the Raptors put the pedal down and defensively held them to 30 points in the second half. They aren't at a point yet where they know how to win and what to do yet with all their talent. And that's probably, part of the age progression that we're always talking about, that we talk about for ourselves as well. In the case of Phoenix, they got beat on a Blake Griffin buzzer beater, and they got beat on a Middleton buzzer beater last night. But they're very interesting because at 12 and 14, they're falling out of the playoff race. They've suddenly lost 6 in a row. Trading world has now opened post December 15th. They suddenly look a lot closer to the team everyone thought they were going to be, which not quite, but then the team that they were last year. But again, I think it's a little bit of a belief issue. They were playing pretty well. They beat Dallas earlier this year, and they strung some interesting wins together, and you thought that they might be able to get it going. Beat the Warriors in November, and you thought this thing was coming, and then it's really fallen off the map, and all of a sudden they've lost 6 in a row, 2 of them on buzzer beaters, but they have some bad losses all of a sudden. You look at them, and they've lost to Orlando at home. They lost to the Charlotte Hornets. They lost to now they lost to the Detroit Pistons, and they lost to the Milwaukee Bucks at home. So Phoenix on the ropes and has themselves in a little bit of a tough situation. They head on the road now to winnable games. Charlotte, New York, then Washington. They come home for one before they go kind of do a little another long road trip. They have Christmas at home, but then they play Sacramento, the Lakers, the Pelicans, the Thunder. So if they don't get that straightened out, it's not clear what happens there and how much they maybe dismantle that roster a little bit. Trade December 15th, so all signed players are now available to be traded. Lance Stevenson is on the block. The Pistons want a first-round draft pick for Greg Monroe is the word out there. They're available. And really anybody who's been signed is now back in play as a possible trade. Injuries last night were a huge story. Jabari Parker's knee buckled, went out of the game without any contact at all. No official word, doesn't look good. Robin Lopez broken hand last night. And we'll see what happens with Portland, who was incredibly healthy last year and didn't have to play a lot without their main guys. And then finally, Kelly Olynyk dropped 30 last night. It is against the team that shall not be mentioned because of what they're doing to the game. So I don't know that we take a lot out of it, but there's some interesting if you look at that draft class, a few guys are beginning to look better. A few guys are not. That draft class you remember the Jazz really liked Olynyk. But if you look at the 2013 draft class, which, still may go down as one of the worst of all time, Anthony Bennett is still, kind of a disaster. Oladipo looks a little bit better. Otto Porter did not look good to me at all. Alex Len is beginning to play well for Phoenix at 5. We don't know about New Orleans. No, McLemore looks a bit better at 7. Contavious Caldwell Pope is playing a little bit better at 8. Steven Adams at 12, Kelly Olynyk at 13. Shabazz Muhammad actually has been playing pretty darn well. Giannis at 15 might be the first pick of the draft again. Schroeder at 17's picked it up a tiny bit. Gorgie Dang at 21 has picked it up. So, and Solomon Hill got a bunch of time. I don't know if he's per se picked it up. He's shooting 40% from the field, but he's got a bunch of time this year. And then obviously 27th, Rudy Gobert is probably one of the big, it's really incredible concept if you were to redo that draft today. I think Giannis would probably be number 1 on the projections. And then, where guys would go from that would be interesting. But Olynyk dropped 30 last night in Boston's win over the team that shall not be mentioned. They won by 20 and were up by 30 much of the game. So it's probably a little bit of a, when you're playing a D-League team, it's hard to tell how much of that is legit. That is your NBA 5. You can participate in our broadcast by calling 801-200-3738. That's 801-200-3738. Ask a question to Ron Boone or to any of our Jazz players. We'll get their answer for you and air it for you on the broadcast. That's 801-200-3738. 38. All right, let's dig into the Jazz here for a second and take your questions. I actually have to jump here pretty soon because the kids are going to jump on. It's interesting. Rudy Gobert got the start. I thought he played pretty well, but one of the things that we love to look at is the Jazz shooting percentage, opponent shooting percentage when Rudy's on the floor versus off the floor. Well, all of a sudden when he played starters, it flipped. Washington shot 51% in that game when Rudy Gobert was on the floor. They shot 45% when Rudy was off the floor. So, a lot got to be careful with a lot of these numbers that we all fall in love with. I do it too, but the value of starting and playing top line guys is really different. Remember Cantor and Favors, and really, frankly, if there's ever a fan group that should really stop with this, it's ours. Remember Cantor and Favors were an elite defensive group together, and everyone was killing Tyrone Corbin for not playing them more together. They were an elite defensive group. The two of them were an elite defensive group together, playing off the bench, and the Al Jefferson and Paul Millsap sucked defensively. And you know what? That was because of who they were playing. Because the minute the frontline guys came in, Ty switched them out. And the fact is that they're not an elite defensive group. Those two guys, the Jazz have really scuffled with the two of those guys on the floor this year. If there's any, if there's any lesson so far this year, it's probably that those two can't defend very well together. And yet 2 years ago, when the Jazz had Al Jefferson and Paul Millsap, that's what we were all clamoring for, was that the Favors and Cantor need to play more together because they were an elite defensive group. Well, they're an elite defensive group because they're playing second-tier guys, and you gotta really be aware of that when you look at the numbers. But I did think Rudy, I thought Rudy was really, really strong and is impacting games. I don't know what the status on Favors is. He went through practice yesterday and participated in some of the live activity, but he is still listed as questionable, so they may be holding him for another day or two to make sure that he's all right. No need really, frankly, to rush him back out there. We're not winning a lot of games, and give Rudy some experience, and no need for Derek to, have that ankle hinder him the rest of the way. Pelicans are really a bizarre team, by the way. How do you have these guys in Ashik and Davis this long and this big, and you're 26th in opponent's field goal percentage? You allow the most amount of shots in the restricted area. How is that possible? Really surprising me to see that. They're also currently in the 8th playoff spot, with Phoenix a half game behind, Oklahoma City a half game behind, Sacramento a half game behind. So they are, every game to them is of immense importance. They are 7-3 at home. They're the 6th best offensive team and the 27th ranked defensive team in the NBA. Surprising that you see that with this team. Little few trends going on with our guys right now. Unfortunately, Trey is back in a shooting slump. He's 25 games in the season, and his numbers are less good than last year. It's a little disconcerting. If you're right now, Trey's last year, you kind of let him continue to develop, and you still got to do the same thing this year. But it's the last 5 games, he's shooting 32% from the field and 26% from three. And frankly, for all of our for all the people out there who are worrying about wins and losses, I'm not really one of them. It's hard to win if that's what your point guard's doing in this league. Hasn't gone to the free throw line in the last 2 games. So, those are tough numbers. He's got to develop more. And if he does start playing better, then the wins will probably come around them with him a little bit more. But Rudy's a great story. 17 minutes a game right now over the last 5, 8 points, 8 rebounds, shooting 64%. And, I can hear people saying he's got to play more. Make sure you understand what you're asking. One, effectiveness. But if you look at his career in 2011-12, he played 14 minutes in a low-level pro league. 12-13 played 23 minutes per game in a Pro A French league, so the high-level French league. And then, last year he really just was kind of getting his feet wet to understand the league, and played 434 minutes. Tonight, there's a chance if he plays 23 minutes tonight, he will exceed his minutes played in all of last year. He has already taken an enormously large jump in what you're asking out of him. You make the next one might be asking, a little bit too much at this point. Let him. This is a process. This is a slow, long process. Let him experience the first half of this process, and learning how to be a pro and play every day, and let them learn how to be a pro off the court and in practices and all that other stuff as well. All right, let's quickly grab some questions before I get the call from the kids that says that they are up and awake. What kind of player do you think we will target this offseason? I think we'll draft a very good player, and then I think we'll have to make some decisions on Ennis and some other players on our roster, and I don't have really any idea because that's so long away. I appreciate the question. But I think you'll begin over the next few years to see more veteran. Once we figure out who really our core guys are, you'll see more veteran presence around them a little bit more who can play. Saw Jazz live versus Wiz. Live, you can truly feel the team hasn't put it together yet. We haven't seen 3 or 4 guys just get rolling at the same time. I wonder what would happen if the young team steamrolled someone for 4 quarters. The team needs it. I mean, I think they need some belief, right? To the point of what we were talking about earlier. And I think that's where you go back in that shot Gordon missed against Chicago and the way the schedule lined up right there. There was a little bit of a chance. There was a little bit of a chance for that, but the Jazz just couldn't get that, and now they don't. I'm not sure where their window. It's certainly not pre-Christmas to be able to get on a little bit of a winning streak or win 4 out of 5 and feel good about yourself. From Kevin, what do you think of Goran Dragic as a trade target this season or free agent this summer? The Jazz have among the worst, if not the worst, point guard the past 2 years. Don't want to waste more good years from Favors and Hayward on bad point guards. To your point exactly, Kevin. I mean, I think right now Trey would start on the Lakers and the Jazz, and that's about it. So the question you have to have is, are you done with Trey? So that's the first question you have to decide. Are you giving up after 2 years of Trey? The next question is, how far away is Dante? And then the third question is, okay, if Dante's 3 years away, if he's on the John Wall path, if you go sign Goran Dragic, are you all right with Dante only playing 18, 19 minutes a night? Because Dragic is going to play 30 plus, and Dante's not a shooting guard; he's a point guard. So, that's a tricky question. And I guess it really comes back to the appetite you believe that you as an organization and a fan base have for some more 20-win seasons. We could have, if we're waiting on Dante, we could have 2 or 3 more 20-win seasons as we begin to surround him and get better with other players. And maybe he'll accelerate a little bit like Giannis has this year, and he's much further ahead than you would have thought. But it seems as though he's gonna take some time. It's really special. So my instinct a little bit is no, because you're gonna really restrict what if you draft Goran Dragic, what Dante's doing. But on the other end, if you've lost your appetite for losing, then maybe you have to do something of that nature. I mean, the other name there that gets in is Darren. I'm not sure he's a mentor, but he's available. His contract's outrageous. We actually might be able to handle that contract a little bit, because if we're really stalling until Dante gets ready. Is Sack's situation good or bad for Ty in the long run? I think it's bad just because of the ownership's. One, I don't think they want Ty. I think they want George Karl or Chris Mullin or somebody else. 2, I think if actually Ty was able to coach that team as he wanted to, I actually think it might work a little bit. I don't think Ty's. I will say this: I laugh a little bit when I see these things that I want a moldable coach, and Ty Corbin might be the least moldable coach I've ever been around, and so and was not open to particularly new ideas. So the idea that he's in that environment seems like a bad script. If he were to just coach the way he has coached with a little improvement in some areas, he might actually be really good for that team. Let Rudy and DeMarcus kind of do their thing, keep everybody good, positive atmosphere in the locker room for 82 games, and let these guys play some ISO and some cross-screen game, and I think it might be fun. That is today's edition of Tip Off. Hope you're well. We'll talk to you from the arena at 5 with Spence and Britton. Talk to you soon.